And we're back for part two. All right here. Josh said that Zopa's gonna go pick up Peak, and he'll Zopa will help bring Peak to the Everest base camp, and that Josh also made a donation to the temple to try to persuade them to let the now Buddhist monk Zopa help Peak out. So, Zopa is okay with this? Oh, absolutely. He's curious about you, and he didn't say this, but I think he's getting kind of bored of being a monk. What's he like? Cagey, Josh said with a smile. If he agrees to do something, he'll do it, but he may not be doing it for the reason you think he's doing it. And he'll never let you in on why he's doing it. Huh? Josh was beginning to sound like Paula and Patrice. It's hard to explain, he said. You never know what Zopa's real motivation is. I asked him to take you to base camp. He said he would. But he's not taking you up there just to do me a favor, or because I gave him money to the temple. There's another reason. More likely half a dozen reasons. He agreed to do it. And you and I will probably never know what all of them are. It was a sad day when he retired, I can tell you that. He's been on the summit of Everest more than any other human being. At least that's the rumor. Zopa says he can't remember how many times reached the top, but I think he knows exactly how many times it's been. He speaks perfect English, and although he doesn't talk very much, when he does, you need to listen. You need to listen very carefully to what he's saying. The Sherpas do. A lot of them drop by the temple before they climb to have him do a reading. If he tells them not to go, they won't go up, no matter how much money we offer them. How do I get in touch with him? He'll give I'm sorry guys. He'll come by in a day or two. In the meantime, you need to sort through this gear. Most of it's yours and you'll need all of it to get up to the mountain. I wasn't sure on the sizes, but if something doesn't fit right, tell Zopa and he'll swap it out at one of the shops downtown. He looked at his watch. I better get going. He started towards the door and stopped. Charge whatever you eat at the restaurant to the room. Do you have any cash? I shook my head. He pulled out a thick wad of money and peeled off several bills. It's not as much as it looks like. 7,000 rupees is about 150 bucks US. I took the bills and set them on the dresser. I'll see you in a couple of weeks, Josh said. Maybe less, if Zopa thinks you're ready. Oh, before I leave town, I'll call your mom and tell her you're okay. I interpreted this to mean that he would call and lie to her about where we were and what we were doing. Better him than me. Enjoy the trip, he said, and with that, he was gone. I stood there for a few seconds, staring at the door. My head was kind of spinning, but it wasn't from altitude. I think it was Josh's energy that was making me dizzy. There was a light tapping on the door, so I felt bare so I so faint I barely heard it. I opened it. It was the concierge. He gave me a slight bow. I will turn down your bed. He wove his way around the junk as if it weren't there, pulled the comforter back, and fluffed the pillows. When he finished, he looked at the window. The curtains were drawn. This will not do, he said. You are missing the setting of the sun. He pulled the curtains back with a flourish. Behind them were the Himalayas, washed in orange and pink light. They were much bigger than I ever imagined. Pretty cool. Moving on to Chapter 9, Gear of the Dead. The next morning, after a huge breakfast in the dining room, I came back upstairs and started sorting through the gear. All the stuff didn't make up for all the birthdays and Christmases Josh had neglected, but it came pretty darn close. It was all state-of-the-art equipment, most of which I'd only seen advertised in climbing magazines. Camp stove, coils of rope, cans, titanium, ice axe, crampons, thermal gloves, digital camera, O2 regulator and face mask, tent, sub-zero sleeping bag, sleeping pad, altimeter watch, carbon, carabiners, batteries, ascenders, pitons, I don't know what those are, harnesses, climbing helmet, headlamp, everything I needed to get through the death zone. Most of the clothes were too small, especially the boots. I suppose Josh couldn't have asked my mother for sizes without tipping her off. And he couldn't have asked me, because until I passed the physical, he wasn't sure I was going, which got me to wondering what he would have done if I had failed the physical. But only for a moment. The gear called to me, and nothing matters when you're up to your knees in brand new, expensive climbing equipment. It took me 2 hours to figure out how the watch worked. An hour to set up the tent. I faced it with the opening towards the window so I could see the Himalayas. I snapped a couple of photos of my view with the digital camera, and then I got hungry and decided rather than going down to the dining room, I'd just cook some food in my brand new camp stove. I know this sounds goofy, but I got a little out of control I got a little out of control when it comes to gear. I opened the window so I didn't get carbon monoxide poisoning. As the freeze-dried beef stroganoff was simmering away there was a knock on my door. I thought it was housekeeping again. They had come by earlier asking to clean the room, but I told them I had everything I needed and to come back tomorrow. I slithered out of the tent, carefully stepped over the stove so I didn't tip it over and burn down the hotel, and cracked open the door, hoping they wouldn't smell the gas burning or the food cooking. It wasn't the housekeeper. It was a Nepalese boy, about my age but 2 inches shorter. He was smiling up at my head, which is all I had revealed through the crack. Below my head, I had nothing on but my boxers because I had been trying on gear all day and it was getting hot in the room from the stove and the sun coming through the window. Peak Wood? He asked. Actually, it's Peak Marcello, but yeah, that's me. My name is Sunjo. Zopa sent me to bring you to him. Oh, sure. I glanced at the mess behind me. I didn't want to leave him standing in the hallway while I got ready, which was going to take a while. Appearing like a total idiot, won over being rude, so I let him in. Sunjo looked a bit shocked at the setup, but he didn't burst out laughing, which I might have done if I stumbled into something equally as stupid looking as my indoor camp spot. My dad, I mean Josh, got me some new gear and I was testing it out so I would know. Ah, forget it, I thought. I'm just making some lunch. Are you hungry? Sunjo said he was. As I got dressed, I watched him checking out the equipment, and I knew he was a climber. No one else would fondle gear as lovingly. He picked up various items like they were more valuable than gold, which they were when they were the only thing keeping you from falling off a rock face or into a dark bottomless crevasse. I cleared a spot for us on the bed and served him a bowl of stroganoff and an energy bar for dessert. It turned out that Sunjo's father had been a Sherpa. Unfortunately, he had died up on K2 the previous year trying to rescue a group of climbers. Only one of the climbers survived. K2 was discovered in 1856 by a surveyor named T.G. Montgomery. The K stands for Karakoram. The 2 means it was the second peak Montgomery listed on his survey. At 28,250 feet, it's a bit shorter than Everest. But most climbers agree it's a lot harder to reach the summit. I told I told Sunjo how sorry I was to hear about his father, but he shrugged it off, saying he hardly knew his dad. He and his 2 younger sisters have spent most of their lives at a private boarding school in northern India. My sisters and I only came back to Kathmandu on holiday, he said. My father was usually up on the mountain during those times. Hearing about his sisters caused a little ache in my belly for Paula and Patrice, but it went away as I watched Sunjo casually tie a length of spectre cord to a hex slung with a triple fisherman's knot. Where'd you learn to climb? I asked. My grandfather instructed me, he answered. His English was better than mine. He had kind of a British Indian accent, Mine was kind of a Bronx, Cody, Wyoming accent, which did not sound nearly as cool or refined. So you're on holiday? No, Sunjo answered. When my father died, we did not have the funds to keep all three of us in school. The tuition is very expensive. My sisters are still in school, and I am here to find work so they can stay there. Without a formal education, there is no future for girls in Kathmandu. I would like to go back to school myself, but it is unlikely I will be able to. It is more important that my sisters attend school than it is for me. Sunjo wasn't much older than I was, and I wondered what kind of job he could get that would pay the tuition. He looked at my altimeter watch, which he had been playing with throughout lunch. We should leave soon. Oh, sorry. We should leave soon. Zopa is waiting for us at the Indriani temple. I turned off the stove and put the dishes in the bathroom sink. Did you know there's a dining room here in the hotel? Sunjo asked. I have not dined there myself, but I hear it is quite excellent. Yeah, I ate there this morning. It's great. The reason I cooked, well, you know, new gear. Sunjo smiled. He knew exactly what I was talking about. Our transportation to the temple was the saddest motorcycle I had ever seen. There was more silver duct tape on it than chrome. It took him 6 vicious kicks to get it started, and when it finally caught, the motorcycle belched out a column of gray smoke so thick that I thought the bike had burst into flames, along with my new friend. But the smoke cleared, revealing a coughing Sun Joe with tears running down his face, and a mostly intact motorcycle, except for the bolt lying in a pool of oil under the engine. It is much better than when we are moving forward, he gasped. In this way, the smoke cannot catch us. I thought about running up to the room and grabbing my climbing helmet, but I was afraid Sunjo might die of asphyxiation before I got back out. So I climbed on behind and we lurched into traffic. Sunjo yelled something that sounded like, Only 2 root beers, last go! But I think he meant that the motorcycle only had 2 foot gears, fast and slow. He was right about the exhaust being behind us. The problem was that we were now speeding through everyone else's exhaust. For the next 20 minutes, I squeezed shut my burning eyes and buried my face in his back, thereby missing most of Kathmandu. We have arrived, Sunjo announced. I unclenched my sweaty hands and opened my eyes. You must remove your shoes before entering the temple. I took them off and put them next to about 50 other pairs of shoes and sandals. If you don't mind my asking, Sunjo said, what happened to your face? It got frozen to a building. Sunjo laughed. No, really. A climbing accident, I said. Oh, that's what I thought. I followed him into the Indarini temple, which was like walking into another world, one where people whispered rather than shouted. There were no wandering cows. We had nearly missed 3 of them on our way over. No horns honking, no screeching tires. The smell of flowers and incense saturated the air. Worshippers were kneeling in front of shrines, oh, spinning prayer wheels, lighting butter lamps. Mystery, possibilities. This was the Kathmandu I had expected. It's pretty cool. Yeah, cows and stuff. There are definitely cows all through Kathmandu and Nepal. Just like India, cows are considered sacred in Nepal. People do not eat beef there, so you're not going to be able to get beef. You eat instead, I think they still eat pork, lamb, things like that. But yeah, cows are considered sacred, so they kind of just wander around. They don't bother anybody. It's kind of cool. I'm going to stop there for today, guys. So that is chapter 8 and half of chapter 9. Uh, check the learning plan for when to check out the other chapters, and there will be a peak worksheet too. You could get started on it now if you have nothing else to do, or you can watch the other videos whenever day that is and work on them after. No worries, guys. Don't stress yourselves out. Have a great one.